Carl Jung spent decades studying the human mind and discovered something disturbing. There are psychological patterns that make certain people fundamentally dangerous to be around, and you're probably familiar with at least 3 of them. In 1961, shortly before his death, Carl Jung was organizing his most controversial writings. These manuscripts had remained hidden for decades because they revealed uncomfortable truths about human nature. Jung wasn't talking about bad people. He was more subtle than that. He identified psychological structures, patterns of behavior that make certain personalities, let's say, problematic for human coexistence. During 60 years of clinical practice, Jung observed that some of his patients exhibited characteristics that went beyond simple neuroses. They were profound distortions in the way these people related to reality and others. And the most frightening thing? These people rarely realize they are this way. The difference between Jung and other psychologists of the time is that he wasn't interested in labeling or judging. He wanted to understand the mechanisms. How does a mind that is incapable of recognizing its own flaws work? How can we identify someone who lives in a reality constructed by their own distorted psyche? If you've ever felt confused after talking to someone, if you've ever questioned your own sanity after a relationship, if you've ever felt like you were dealing with someone who seemed to live in another dimension, maybe you've encountered one of these 6 types. But before continuing, like the video and subscribe to the channel. This really helps the algorithm to bring this content to more people who, like you, seek to understand the mysteries of the human mind. Now, let's look at the 6 types Jung identified. And get ready. The last one will make you question people you once considered trustworthy. Type 1, or inflation. Jung called this psychic inflation. It's not ordinary arrogance. It's something much deeper and more dangerous. The inflated person genuinely believes they possess superhuman knowledge or abilities. They're not lying when they say they can solve all the world's problems. They truly believe it. The crucial difference. The arrogant person knows they're exaggerating. The inflated person doesn't. Their psyche has pathologically fused with archetypes of the collective unconscious. They literally can't distinguish between their personal thoughts and universal truths. A researcher at the University of Zurich, an expert in Jungian psychology, explained it this way. It's as if this person has direct access to the universe's instruction manual. In their mind, every opinion they hold is a cosmic revelation. Have you ever met someone like this? The person who always has the answer to everything, who never shows any uncertainty, who speaks on any subject as if they were a world expert. Beware. Jung observed that such people are incapable of learning because they believe they already know everything. Type 2. The shadow possessed. Here's where things get sinister. Jung discovered that some people not only don't recognize their shadow, they're completely dominated by it, but they project it onto others. The shadow, for Jung, is all the aspects of our personality that we repress or deny. Everyone has one. The difference is that healthy people gradually recognize and integrate their shadow. Those possessed by the shadow do the opposite. They live their shadow through others. These people have an almost supernatural ability to pinpoint your weaknesses and use them against you. They don't do this consciously. It's an automatic mechanism in their psyche. It's as if they were psychological vampires, feeding on the emotional weaknesses of others. A psychiatrist with 30 years of experience in psychiatric hospitals told me something I've never forgotten. Some patients could exhaust me after 20 minutes of conversation. It wasn't what they said. It was as if they were sucking the lifeblood out of me. Jung identified this as one of the most dangerous patterns because these people are masters of unconscious manipulation. They don't plan to destroy you, they just can't help it. Type 3, or disintegrated. This is perhaps the most tragic of the 6 types. The disintegrated person is someone who has completely lost the connection between their conscious and unconscious selves. It's as if their personality were a puzzle, with pieces that no longer fit together. Jung observed these cases primarily in people who had suffered extreme trauma or had abused substances for long periods. But he also identified cases of psychic disintegration in people who had lived seemingly normal lives. The most disturbing characteristic? These people can be completely different depending on the context. It's not hypocrisy, it's literally a fragmentation of personality. With family, they can be loving. At work, sadistic. With friends, generous. With strangers, cruel. A neurologist who has studied Jung's writings for decades explained, "It's as if there are several different people inhabiting the same body, and they don't communicate with each other. The problem is, you never know which version of that person will emerge. And worse, the person doesn't know. They genuinely don't remember behaviors they've displayed in other contexts. But that's just the beginning. The next three types are even more disturbing because they're much harder to identify. Type 4. The false individual. Jung considered individuation the supreme goal of psychological life, the process of becoming who we truly are. But he discovered something terrifying. Some people pretend to have gone through this process, and they themselves believe the lie. The false individual is the person who talks about self-knowledge, who quotes Eastern philosophy, who seems to have profound wisdom about life. But it's all psychological performance. Inside, they are frightened children wearing spiritual guru masks. The cruel difference is that genuinely individuated people are humble about their limitations. The falsely individuated person is absolutely certain about everything. They have constructed an identity based on being evolved, and any questioning of that identity is felt as an existential attack. An analytical psychologist who worked with this type of patient for 20 years told me, "They come into the office saying they don't need therapy, that they just want to share insights. But when you scratch the surface, you find a terrified child behind the facade of wisdom. These people are dangerous because they can convince others they have the answers. They build followings, form groups, and influence important decisions. And worst of all, they truly believe they're helping." Type 5. The persona possessed. For Jung, the persona is the social mask we wear our professional, family, and social roles. It's normal and necessary to have a persona. The problem arises when someone completely identifies with it, forgetting that there's a real person behind the mask. Jung observed extreme cases. Executives who literally couldn't switch off CEO mode even at home. Mothers who didn't exist outside of their maternal role. Teachers who couldn't have an informal conversation without lecturing. But what's most disturbing is that these people gradually lose the ability to feel authentic emotions. They only feel the emotions their persona should feel. An executive feels job satisfaction, but has lost the ability to feel genuine joy. A mother feels motherly love, but has forgotten what it feels like to love someone as an individual. A psychiatrist specializing in burnout explained to me, "They come into my office saying they feel empty, but when I ask them what they feel outside of work or family roles, they are genuinely confused. It's as if they don't exist outside of those roles." The danger for you is that these people are incapable of authentic relationships. They relate only to other people's personas. If you try to show vulnerability, imperfections, or real humanity, they become extremely uncomfortable. Type 6. The walking collective unconscious. This is the most subtle and perhaps the most dangerous of all. Jung discovered that some people don't develop their own individuality. They become merely channels for the contents of the collective unconscious. You know those people who always know exactly what society expects of them? Who never have controversial opinions? Who always follow trends? Who seem to have an antenna to capture the zeitgeist? Be careful. They have no personality of their own. Jung observed that these people are like psychological sponges. They absorb the expectations, fears, desires, and prejudices of the group to which they belong. But they do so naturally that neither they nor others notice. The terrible thing is that these people can be extremely influential. They can mobilize masses because they speak exactly what the collective unconscious wants to hear. Hitler was an extreme example of this type, according to Jung. He had no ideas of his own. He was a megaphone for the dark contents of the German collective unconscious. A historian specializing in crowd psychology told me, "The most dangerous leaders in history weren't necessarily bad people. They were hollow people who became vehicles for collective psychological forces. In their everyday lives, these people are the ones who never disagree with the group, who always know their opinion on any topic, who change their personality completely depending on who they're with. They're not lying, they literally become whatever the group needs them to be." But here's the most frightening thing Jung discovered. We all have the potential to develop these characteristics. The difference between a psychologically healthy person and these 6 types isn't the presence or absence of these patterns, it's the degree of awareness of them. Jung wrote in his unpublished personal diaries, "The man who believes himself immune to the distortions of the psyche has already been conquered by them." And there's a 7th type that Jung identified but never wrote about publicly. A type so common and so dangerous that he believed revealing its characteristics would cause social panic. Carl Jung left us a map of the human mind, but also a warning. These 6 types are not bad people, they are human beings who have lost touch with essential parts of themselves. And we all run that risk. True Jungian wisdom lies not in labeling others, but in recognizing these tendencies in ourselves before it's too late. Jung said, "Everything we irritate in others is only a projection of what we don't accept in ourselves." Perhaps the real danger is not these 6 people, but our own inability to see our shadows, our inflations, our disintegrations. The question Jung leaves us with is not, how do you identify these people? But rather, which of these characteristics do you recognize in yourself? Because in the end, the greatest enemy of human consciousness is not out there. It is in the mirror. If you enjoyed this video and want to continue exploring the mysteries of the human mind, I invite you to watch the one currently showing on your screen. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Thank you very much for your attention. See you in the next video.